Yontif. Tonight, by you, it's already night.
Correct.
The Yontif of Yudalit Kislev, there's nothing higher. How do we know that? It's not a Hagish. A Hagish, it could be, sometimes you need to take medicine for Hagashim. Heartburns, face. Today, people go a lot by the Hagashim. Sachanis nefashos. Sometimes you can have the wrong. You think it's a holy Hagish and it's a heartburn. But when the Rebbe says such words about Yudalit Kislev, that this is the day that the Rebbe sich verbinden mit uns und uns mit the Rebbe should say such a thing. Is there a holier day, a greater day for a chassid? Today's like the Rebbe, we have the Rebbe. So it's a moire dikiyontif. But together with this is a tremendous hischayvos on us. Because if Taka, we have the Rebbe, then we have to shape up. We have to know that the Rebbe wants from us a lot. He's expecting a lot because he gives us everything he could give us. And he's expecting us to be Hasidim. To be a Chassid is a full-time job. We have to learn Hasidus, and we have to work on ourselves. We have to daven, we have to learn Hasidus, and we have to act like Hasidim. It's not just a party. We have a Rebbe. And the host a Rebbe. I want to tell you a short story. Maybe I told the story. The Frierdiker Rebbe once made a surprise visit to Atvotsk, where there was the yeshiva. He went there to daven mincha. There was a time for mincha. My father was then the menahel of this yeshiva. So they didn't say tachnun. So the Frierdiker Rebbe turned to my father and said, how come they didn't say tachnun? So my father answered, because the Rebbe gekommen. Wait, you ready for this? Hold on to your cheers, because it's sakonis nefashos when you hear the answer. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, as a Rebbe is da, das ist a Tam nicht zu sündigen. Aber nicht a Tam nicht zu sagen tachnun. You hear what's going on? Yeah, you have a Rebbe. With a Rebbe, you got to shape up. It's a moiridic story. So it's Yudalit Kislev is a Yontif beligvul. Aber it's mechayiv, gewaltige Sachen. We have to, what the Rebbe wants us to be, and the way we are, is a mamish gefährlich. Recently, they came out with a sikha, maybe it was a video. It was on Chaf Cheshvan. And the Rebbe said, I'm sure you all saw it, but I didn't remember such words. The Rebbe said that it was talking about Chaf Cheshvan. What a Rebbe gives on Chaf Cheshvan, the Rebbe Rashab, what he gives. But the Rebbe said such moridika words, that if you don't use out this day, let's say Chaf Cheshvan, in the way that it was monzich on Chaf Cheshvan from the Rebbe Rashab, then you are mamish, he said it, you're making a bilbul, you're messing up Kvayachol the Rebbe Rashab. He's giving kaiches, and you're not using it. So, Asher L'chein, it's not just your problem. Aber so you're chas v'sholem, you're mevalvel the Rebbe Rashab in Gan Eden. He's giving all these kaiches and we're not using it. This is such an eye-opener. So when it comes Yudalit Kislev, the same idea. We can't just sit around fabraying and sing and dance. Yippee-yay. The Rebbe is giving us today more dicke things. So darf man sich erst nehmen zu der Arbeit. Yudalit Kislev ist ein Tag von Horrorwin in der Machen a Cheshbon a Nefesh. Is the Rebbe happy with me? Am I doing my fullest to the Rebbe's expectation from me? Es ist ein Tag, was ist ein heiliger Tag, aber es ist ein Monat von dem Tag. There's a lot of stories. Friedrich Rebbe once a chassid, I don't know exactly who, but somebody was chapping Schreien from the Friedrich Rebbe. So the Friedrich Rebbe says, bei uns ist Schreien mechayiv. You know, bei the Polish, I also know about this, is du as a sach, man chapt Schreien, es ist ein größtes Skille, ein größtes Schrie. Bei Chabad, du nimmst Schreien, you better shape up, because now you have moedike koiches. So this is just l'chaim, informal verbringen for Yudalit Kislev as a take reich onabreg, but man darf sich nehmen zu der Arbeit. I once heard from Rabbi Avraham Ayara Oliver Shalom. He had a saying, it's a moeredike saying, and we could all learn from this. He said, a dank dem Eibishten fa dem Rebben, und a dank dem Rebben fa dem Eibishten. Did you hear this? Did everybody ever hear this before? Without a Rebbe, what's our shares with the Eibishter? It's a whole different story. So a dank dem Rebben fa dem Eibishten. The Friedrich Rebbe once said such powerful words. It's printed in one of the Sichas. Seid mekusher mit mir, wird dir sein mekusher mit wem ich bin mekusher. You hear what's going on? Is there any more powerful words than this? Friedrich Rebbe says, when you are mekusher to me, I am enabling you to be mekusher to the Eibishter on the highest way. So Yudalit Kislev that's our connection to the Eibishter. The Alter Rebbe finds this idea of iskashres to a Rebbe so important that he puts it in Perik Beis in Tanya. You would think, this is something I'm a Rebbe. Okay, you put this like in the end, you're ready to learn Hasidus. Then we can start talking about. You got to know that without a Rebbe, you're missing everything. The Alter Rebbe learns in Perik Beis in Tanya. My dear friends, I don't know if we ever talked about this. The Alter Rebbe in Perik Beis, this is like a major atom bomb. He says like this. It says in the Torah, Uledafkaboy. This is so interesting, this religion. Every mitzvah that we do, it's made to connect to the Tzavse v'chibur to the Eibishter. That's what a mitzvah is. We connect to the Eibishter. Mitamal, there's a separate mitzvah, Uledafkaboy. What do you think I was doing till now? Wasn't I doing mitzvahs and I was? No. It's a chasimin from the Torah. This is unbelievable. That you could do 612 mitzvahs and you're not dafuk by. You have tzavtze v'chibur, which is a very special thing. But Dveikis b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu means that it's not even two. When you say tzafse v'chibur, there is the mitzvah and there's a mitzvah, and you connect. Dveikis b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu is not even two. And there's a mitzvah min ha-Torah. The Eibishter says, I'm not saying it's a nice idea. You could eat some popcorn and talk about it. Yeah, kind of interesting. No. If you don't have a Rebbe, wait, I'll soon tell you. If you don't have a Rebbe, you are missing Ledofka boy. Now listen, check this out. The Torah says, Rabbi Rifkin, are you listening? Rabbi Rifkin, not Caveman, I call him Rifkin. Do you catch what I'm saying here? I'm trying to say something that you could read it and you don't get it. The Gemara says, Uledafka boy, you should cleave on to the Eibishter. Boy means the Eibishter. Comes the Gemara and said it means Hadvik b'Talmidei Chacham. Excuse me? The Torah says boy. How could the Gemara say it means Hadvik b'Talmidei Chacham? It doesn't say it. It says boy. So the Alter Rebbe learns the Talmud Chacham that the Gemara is talking about is not a great scholar. A Talmud Chacham means he's in the Madrege of Chochmeh Atzilis, which Moshe Rabbeinu is the Madrege from Chochmeh Atzilis. And Chochmeh Atzilis, says the Alter Rebbe in Perek Lamed Hey, Kabalti Memoiri, from the Holy Maggid, that what is Chochmeh Atzilis? Chochmeh Atzilis is Hu Levadai Hu Ve'ein Zulasai. The Eibishter, who is the only existence, shines in Chochmeh Atzilis. That's Chochmeh Atzilis. So if you are Dovok in the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation, he is the Chochmeh Atzilis. So you are connected to Hu Levadi Hu Ve'ein Zulasai. And without that, Tzafse v'chibur you have, but Dveikis b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu you can't have. This is nuts. The way the Alter Rebbe learns Pshat in the Pasuk. Pshat, you talk to a regular guy who doesn't learn Chassidus, Talmud Chacham, of course, a Gadol, a Rosh Hashiva. What Rosh Hashiva, what you're talking about, we're not talking about a scholar. We're talking about someone who's in the darge of Chochmeh Atzilis, which is the darge of Moshe Rabbeinu. And only through a Moshe Rabbeinu can you be Dovok in the Eibishter himself. So says who? The Eibishter. Do him something. Also steht in the Torah. That's how the Alter Rebbe says is a pshat in the pasuk. So what means we have a Rebbe? What means Yudalet Kislev? It's our Dveikis LaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's our connection to the Eibishter. That's the pasuk. So well, everything had a little story, so I'll tell you a little story. When my father, Alav Hashalom, was going to get married to my Zayda's daughter, who was Kapushnitzer Rebbe, and he was very close to the Frierdiker Rebbe, like mamish, like brothers. The Frierdiker, my Zayda asked the Frierdiker Rebbe about my father. Is there a Talmud Chochem? You know, that's like one of the questions. So you ready for this answer? You can't even understand the answer if you don't learn Tanya. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, "Bei uns is a Talmud Chochem gor an andere Sach." I don't even know if my Zayda understood what he was saying, but because you have to. But because what the Frierdiker Rebbe was saying is the word Talmud Chacham means an Neshama Atzilis. So in the end of the part is a Chacha Ayir Shemayim or is it Ayir Shemayim? So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, yeah, as a Groise Shemayim. But it's interesting this word that a Talmud Chacham by Chabad is gar ananda so teich. So doesn't it teich Judalit Kislev? Durch dem haben wir dem Eibishten. So what are we going to do about it? We're going to just say we had a good time, was a rather entertaining Judalit Kislev here, or are we going to get to work? I heard that Amalek Hasidim, you don't even see these Hasidim anymore, but Amalek Hasidim, in Tomcha Tamimim, when the Rebbe Rashab would sometimes walk into the Zal, the Bochum would take the hat and cover their forehead because they knew our Rebbe sees everything on your face. He sees the whole situation. So it was so automatically they covered the head. The same Rebbe could see your forehead, he could see through a hat. That is already a separate story. But Bepoil, the Bushe, the Verlorenkeit that a Chassid had in the presence of a Rebbe. I don't even know if there was by any Chassidim that kind of a bittul to a Rebbe that there is by Chabad. I for sure never saw that in my days by other Chassidim. Going into Yechidus to a Rebbe, bei der ganzen Welt, man geht daran, man kriegt a Bruche, and man tut, was man will, but you don't ask him things that you might not like what he says. But by Chabad, the going into Yechidus, it's a whole different ganz ineinander Sach. There's a famous story that there was a once, I think the Rebbe, Frierdiker Rebbe, said L'chaim to Reb Zalman Moshe, and they asked him later, like, what were you seeking, Rishas Maisa? I'm not saying over every word, but the Nekuda was that he said he couldn't wait to get his Chazisha face to hide because the Frierdiker Rebbe was looking at his face. You're talking about such a Oyed Hashem, but his bittul to the Rebbe. We're talking already, so I'll give you some more lachlochias. There was a chassid, a nijot. We have all kinds. You know, we have enough to, like there's a foreclosure, a sellout. There was a chassid in the time of the Rebbe Rashab. You got to hear this. A chassid, the Rebbe Rashab, in those days, in the time of the Rebbe Rashab, you didn't just say L'chaim by a Verbringen. If the Rebbe told you to say L'chaim, you said L'chaim. You didn't just, hey, Rebs, L'chaim. You understand? So the Rebbe Rashab tell this guy, you have to hear the story. So the Rebbe Rashab is telling a chassid, Zog L'chaim. So this idiot tells the Rebbe, Ich hab schon. The Rebbe Rashab was going to give him. What do you think? The Rebbe is a bartender? A Rebbe, when he gives mashke, he's giving ruchnis, broches, koiches. So this yod says, Ich hab schon. Today, no Hasidim would be so stupid. But in those days, they had such. So he said, Ich hab schon, you don't have to give me, I have already. So the Rebbe Rashab says to him, Was hast du? Und was gebe ich dir? Here you don't hear. A hot shine. And today, in this day and age, no chassid would say that to the Rebbe. If the Rebbe is about to give you, you would never even think of such a stupidity. But we had such people. So the Rebbe had to tell him, what do I think? I want to give you something to drink to make your to make your throat is dry. Take a little schnapps. A Rebbe is giving you a Rebbe geht. Der Meile hat gesagt, ich hab schon. Sagt der Rebbe Rashab, was hast du und was geht mit dir? Okay, Adkan is the kitzer from the Farbrengen. So I want to tell you some things that I heard about Yudalit Kislev by the Chasiner, things that I heard from my father or what I heard from Hasidim. First, maybe you heard this before. You'll forgive me if you're hearing it again, but it's Yudua that the Frierdiker Rebbe, when the Rebbe was going to the chuppah, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was putting on his gartel. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said that when I said Oizer Yisrael Bigvura in the morning, I had in mind you with this gartel. Did you hear this before? Hello? You ever heard this? That's one beautiful thing. I also heard from my father that he remembers my father was zoicha to be by all the chasinis of all the 3 daughters, and also the Frierdiker Rebbe. He had no money, and the Frierdiker Rebbe would pay for the train or for whatever for the hitzos that he should be by the chasin. So one of the things he told us, our children, is that he remembers that there was a very big seder how the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted this whole chasana should be. It was a very big hall. And I also heard last night also that you had to go, everybody who came to the chasana had to have a card to get in. You couldn't just walk into the chasana. But the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted that the Bachrim should stand all the way opposite the furthest part of the hall. Like, let's say if the Rebbe would be on Mizrach, the Bachrim had to stand mamish by the wall way back in the hall. It was a tremendous Mesiras Nefesh, because the Bachrim would want to hear every word, what's going on, every word that the Frierdiker Rebbe would say. They had to stand all the way in the back. But because of their bittul to listen and so the Frierdiker Rebbe later, he himself, the Frierdiker Rebbe, went all the way to the back, and he gave l'chaim. The Frierdiker Rebbe had a towel on his, like he was like kvayochel, like a butler or like a waiter, and he himself gave all the bachrim l'chaim, and there's a whole sicha what he said, but that was like a kirov pnimi, because the bachrim had the Mesiras Nefesh to stand all the way in the back of this hall. Also, I'm sure you heard this already, that by the Chasene, this is also a Peledik Azach. One of the Rebbes that came to the Chasene was the Amshin of the Rebbe. For whatever reason, the Frierdiker Rebbe was miyake him. And he came in middle of the Maimah that the Frierdiker Rebbe said. You ready for this? The Frierdiker Rebbe stopped the Maimah. And I don't know, got up or made him place. And then he asked Rishus. This is nuts. He asked Rishus from the Amshin of the Rebbe, should he continue? This is such a pellet. But this is what was. A Rebbe says a Maimah is unbelievable. It's Shchina mit Abayas with Turkreina. It's Messina. It's a Mordik. He stopped in the middle of the Maimah, and he asked him later, could I continue? Also, there was by the Chasene, I just heard this yesterday, maybe you know this already, there was big gewaltige Talmidei Chachamim, there was Rabbi Menachem Zembe, there was the Lubliner Rav, who was the Miyasid from the yeshiva, the Miyasid of the Rabbi Shapiro, and he spoke back, and the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rabbi Shapiro that he should talk with the Edom in learning by the Chasana. And he talked with the Rebbe in learning, and he right away said that it's Mordek Schwache to the Frierdiker Rebbe that at the Chagor and Oilam or something. Also, Rabbi Menachem Zember, when he met him by the Chasana, he later specially made an appointment to talk with the Rebbe in learning b'meshach a few days after the Chasana. And they also were Mordek Nispol of the Rebbe's Ga'onis. The Rebbe was very behalten, and the Frierdiker Rebbe himself said that mein Edom behalt sich von mir. His greatness is, he conceals it even to the Frierdiker Rebbe. But the Frierdiker Rebbe was a Frierdiker Rebbe, and he knew who the Rebbe was. So there is Reshimis from Rabbi Elichaim Altois, and he has a whole arichis. He was really with the Rebbe a few days before the Chasana, how nispol he was of how the Rebbe had sich geführt, although he was very, very hidden, but he saw that the Rebbe is on a whole different kind of a level. And he even wrote this out, and he wrote to the Frierdiker Rebbe of how he saw the Rebbe, his Hanhaga, on the Hachanis of the Chasana, on the day of the Chasana. Derech Agav, I think everybody should know this, that the Rebbe's father wrote to the Rebbe what he should do on the day of the Chasana. And one of the things he told him to learn is Perek Chafhei in Tanya. This is very important to know, because basically the Perek Chafhei is talking about Mesiras Nefesh for every mitzvah, that every mitzvah is like, either it's Anochi Hashem Elokecha, or it's the opposite, it's Avodah Zarah. It's a very powerful Perek, and that is what the Rebbe's father wanted him to learn on this day. And that's how we should feel also on that day. Now, there's a few other things that I would like to share with you that I don't know if everybody knows. There was by the Beis Harav, this I heard this from my father. It's very important to know that although in the Gemara we know that there's a whole Masechta, a whole sugya about zugers, that zugers is not good for shadim, whatever. It's a whole sugya in the Gemara. And we know that it's mekubal, that there's no more shadim anymore, and we don't fezach with all these heres. But my father looks like he heard from the Frierdiker Rebbe that although all these things are no longer here in a certain gashmistic way, but the inyanim beruchnis do exist. And the Rabbeim were makpid in all these inyanim that it says in the Gemara. And therefore, lemashal, zugos, not to eat, let's say, 2 eggs at a time, because it's zugos. The Rabbeim were nizer in these inyanim. It's very interesting to know that zugos and all these things, if the Torah talks about them, the Torah's nitzchi. If it's not negayah in gashmis, but it's negayah in ruchnis. Another interesting thing, a very interesting issue, is ayin hara. We know that we're not so makbid in ayin hara, but the emes is that we are the Rabbeim in Beis Harav were moiradik. I don't know what the right words are, but they were very, very careful with ayin hara. When a chassid came to a rebbe and they were mevatel, there was a rebbe mevatel. You know, you need to have a rebbe to say it's nothing, but not that ayin hara is nothing. It's a reality, because a piece Chassidus, it comes out like this. What's a taich ayin hara? The person has something special. If he has a special child, he's, let's say, wealthy or something special. If somebody is jealous of it, it becomes an issue. At that time that the person makes an issue, it becomes an issue l'mayla. And a person is judged a whole day. If you make a tzimis about something that somebody has, then upstairs l'mayla, you could be judged. Are you worthy now to really have that? That's the taich ayin hara. You're making a tzimis of something that someone has. If you make it an issue, it becomes an issue. If it becomes an issue, you have to know, are you worthy now to have that good thing? So if you look in the Torahs of the Frierdiker Rebbe Sichos, the Baal Shem Tov was very careful that you should not beautify your child. Let's say when you go, people like to show off my children's beautiful clothes. You have a beautiful child or beautiful clothes. You're not helping your child by making your child stick out as something special, because there is such a thing, al pi ruchnius, is ayin hara, and we don't want to fall into the hands of the wrong places. But so I want to say, this is something that I heard from my father, that although the Rabbeim would be mevatel, don't worry about ayin hara, blah blah blah, that's a Rebbe makes that. A Rebbe makes it bottle, but not that it's nothing to worry about. So a person should really not try to brag of things that he has, to show off things that he has, because it's not healthy. Push it for you, for your children, for your mishpacha, whatever you have, something special, don't talk about it. Don't make it into an issue out with your words or with your actions. This is very interesting. So I just now shared with you that the inyan of ayin hara, the inyan of zugos, is it's reality. Another thing that is very, very interesting, that in Beis Harav, if somebody would fall in the mishpacha, the Frierdiker Rebbe would laugh on the koil. Laugh? That was mamtik dinim. This was a seder. If you fell off a chair, you fell, whatever you fell, that was something, an inyan of din. So the Rebbe would be mamtik it by smiling or laughing. It's a very interesting inyanim. Are we talking already about the Frierdiker Rebbe? So I want to share with you another interesting story. One time my father went into the Frierdiker Rebbe, I think it was in America already, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was very serious, or maybe, I don't know, he was very sad. And he turned to my father and he said he doesn't see the Tamimim deveniflinu. What does that mean? Niflinu is a pasuk in the Torah that the Eibishter speaks about the Yidden, that we are way above all the Umas Ha'olam, we're mamish close to the Eibishter. So the Frierdiker Rebbe used these words, that really, in other words, Tomcha Tamimim, Bachrim from Tomcha Tamimim are supposed to be the highest kind of Bachrim. And he was sort of down, whatever the word is, that he doesn't see that our Bachrim are Taka v'niflinu. So my father, he was very close to the Frierdiker Rebbe. He was like a child there. He was adopted by the Frierdiker Rebbe at the time. So my father said to the Frierdiker Rebbe, "As is Yov v'niflinu," and he said that, talking about, he was a manal of the yeshiva there in the 770, and he was a teacher there and a manal. So he said, "As Yov v'niflinu," wherever the Bachrim go, these American Bachrim who became Lau Tamimim, wherever they go, people have a special dercheretz for these Bachrim. These words had a gewaltige Roshim on the Frierdiker Rebbe. When the Frierdiker Rebbe went home back to his house, back in his cheder, wherever, later the daughters of the Frierdiker Rebbe were very curious what happened this night. They knew that the Frierdiker Rebbe was very down, and the whole mood, kavayachal, I don't know what words to use, it's a whole different, so what happened? They found out that these words that my father said to the Rebbe, that there is the v'neflinu, and everybody sees it, that was goyrem a moire dike nachas ruach to the Rebbe. The story is negeya for us to know that if we taka al Lubavitcher Hasidim, we have a tremendous responsibility. People have to look at a chassid. It's a different kind of a yid, a hecher yid, who's in ganzen, his whole life is committed to the Eibishter. That's what a chassid is supposed to look like. We're talking stories. I'll tell you another wichtige story. My father-in-law was Rabbi Hendel from Montreal. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of the Tomcha Tamimim. He was a big Rav. The Rebbe made him, Frierdiker Rebbe made him Rav of the whole Kehillas Anash in Montreal. One time, my Shver, Rabbi Hendel, was by the Rebbe on Yechidus, and the Rebbe wanted to talk to him about Lubavitcher Shchita. You got to hear this, and this is, maybe you should hold on to your cheers, because it's Mavhil. The Rebbe said, Lubavitch das meint men mir. It's not an organization or a group. Lubavitch das meint men mir. It means Rebbe. So anything about Lubavitch, it's affecting him. So he says, he wants Lubavitcher Shchita should be Shachtim who learn Chassidus. And he said, ganze beer, that the Rambam said that the case of Yoveli Ava V'Yirasa is only if you misburning. So you have to learn Chassidus in order to have Ava V'Yira, or else you can't be a Yir Shemayim. The Shchit has to be a Yir Shemayim. The Rebbe, so he talked that he warns that the Lubavitcher Shchita has to be people who learn Chassidus B'Poil. But why? Because I have my name on this Shchita. This is we can verbringen a ganze Nacht. Even Shchita's Lubavitch means the Rebbe's name is on this Shchita. So wherever we walk, wherever we go, we are representing the Rebbe. This is a moiradike tall order. This is very serious. If we don't act up as the way like the Rebbe wants, that's you're playing with the Rebbe now. People are looking now at the Rebbe differently because Lubavitch means the Rebbe. I think this is very important to know, my dear friends. This is a very important thing. If we are Lubavitchers, it's not the kapote and the black hat and all the 9 yards. It's your whole metzius. You're representing the Rebbe. This is moiridik. So should we start with Hasidus? I don't know what time it is. I got a little bit off the. What time is it now? Is it time to learn or time to finish?
A bissel learning, a bissel.
Okay,
we have 8 minutes. Let me learn a bissel Torah.
Okay. So we are, to my knowledge, we are now. Did we talk about the third principle about? Ein like guf alein de musaguf. Am I correct that we started talking about that? Is that correct? Nobody remembers even?
We started.
So I want to explain something that is very, very negeya. In Kabbalah and in Chakira, there is a whole ariches is avoida tzoirach gavoya. Is our work needed? Is it significant kvayachal to the Eibishter or not? What says? On one hand, how could we say that what we do is important to the Eibishter when we are so insignificant we can't even imagine how insignificant it is? So what we do, does it matter? Does it affect something up there? And there's a whole diun in Kabbalah wegen them. And believe it or not, there is a maskana that it depends where. Till a certain madrege, we do affect the upper spiritual worlds. And then there is a higher madrege where there we don't affect. So when you learn this alpi pashtis without chasidus, you could chas v'sholem come to a totally distorted hanoch. That really, when push comes to shove, you don't matter. You only matter to a certain level, but really, you don't matter. That would be disastrous. Pashit in Yisoidei Hayados, that sof goes sof, we don't make a difference. So what are we doing? So why are we doing things? It's for us, to give us a reward, to give us a punishment. Then basically it's not emes. We really don't make a difference to the real Eibishter, but it's good for you. You have some impact somewhere. But really to the Eibishter, chas v'sholem, you could come to a distorted hanocha that I really don't make a difference. But Hasidus explains that there's two different points. The Eibishter set up a system of Seder Hishtalshalos, a system of worlds and levels and higher levels and lower levels. And he purposely made that everything we do affect different levels and different spheres and different attributes. We do that. And we are how we receive our hashpah from Hashem is based on our conduct. For instance, if a person does something where he's poigim, he makes a blemish in one of the spheres, let's say in spheres hachesed, if he made a blemish there, then his hashpah from Hashem that's going to come through chesed is going to have a problem because you made a blemish there. So how are you going to get it through chesed? You put up a block there. And why did the Eibishter make it that way? He purposely made it that way that we should know that our actions really is connected to what we will receive from Hashem. Schar ve'oinish is a part of Yiddishkeit. We have to know that we, according to our conduct, that's how we're going to get the hashpah. Why? Purposely for our good, that we should know that we earned things. If I work harder, Hashem pays me according to what I worked. It's for our good that He loves us so much that if we would get things for free, it wouldn't feel the same as if we knew that we really earned it. So the Eibishter set up a system that according to your deeds, that's how you earn it. But without Hasidus, it still would mean that in final analysis, to him alone doesn't make a difference. And it's clear Chazal, without learning Hasidus, you have clear Chazal like that. And it's even in the Maimah from the Bar Mitzvah Bach. The Medrash im Tzodakta matiten loi. If you did a sin, who cares? To the Eibishter, you could spit nickels, jump in the lake. Eibishter is so great. So therefore, then chas v'sholom, I could go away thinking whatever I do doesn't make a difference. And for me, it's good for my blood pressure, it's good for my business. But to the Eibishter, He's above all that. That would be kfire. We're playing with very serious things. Because the Torah says no. The Eibishter Take, it shouldn't have mattered. Because He's infinitely great and infinitely greater than us. We're totally insignificant. That is how we understand Al Pi Seichel. But the Eibishter made, only He could do that. He put Himself that it does matter to Him alone. He doesn't get affected like a nivra that actually gets offended or affected, but he's a whole different kind of a being that he's not affected by it. But does it bring the Eibishter alone a nachas ruach? Nachas ruach beyond. So what are we saying? We're saying that Torah and mitzvahs is nigei kvayochel and atzmus. Because He was boicha that. Not that because we would have mattered. It's only because He chose so. But once He chose, it's He Himself that chose, and it becomes noigeya in the deepest way. That every move that we make really goyrem the Eibishter nachas ruach. Yesterday we learned in the Parsha that Yaakov had a dream, Malachim, Oilam, V'yodem B'raya, and the Sulam, and then it says, V'hine Hashem Nitzav Alav. So the Rebbe explains there are two pshatim. Nitzav Alav, He stands on it. What's the Alav? So one pshat is it's on the Sulam. The Eibishter is on top of the ladder. But there's another pshat. The Eibishter is standing on Yankov. What does that mean? The Eibishter is standing on Yankov. So one of the things that it means is that just like if somebody would be standing, and make believe you're laying on the ground, and somebody's standing on you. I don't know if you could hold out that, but you're probably going to suffocate. But say somebody's standing on you, every move that you make, that guy who's standing on you could fall, could break his head, because he's standing on you. Learns the Rebbe, the message is that everything you do matters to the Eibishter, every move. He's standing on you. This is a Yesod Chassidus. At the same time that the Eibishter is building Balgvul and he's higher than higher than higher than higher. He put himself, he chose to put himself that everything that we do is goyrem him a blig vul nachas ruach. And the same goes on verkehrt. So this is one of the things I wanted to conclude, that there are a lot of people, a lot of Gedolim today who are convinced. I mean, that could, you know what, Gedolim, we're not going to go into that, but there's a lot of Gedolim that Takan convinced that the Eibishter couldn't care less. But it's good for you. You know, you're naive, makes you feel good, it's good for you, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. But this is mamish sakonis nefashis. A rachmanis on such a thinking, b'chlal. A Yid has to know that everything he does is negeya to the Eibishter himself. Everyone should be blessed and have a good yontif. Today is a yontif ad ein kates. Get yontif, everyone. Gebenched, everyone should be.
Shakir, Gada, thank you very much. Good Yom Tov. Until next week.
I gebenched.